Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Gallinger and welcome back into an all new episode of the Challenge to Champion show. After a few weeks off from this show, I've had some time to really reflect on things going on in my life and figure out ways to enhance my own life for the better in independence and an even more increased sense of personal freedom, strength, and responsibility. In the last episode, I discussed trust. Now, those traits that I just mentioned, that I've been working on in my few weeks away, those are all characteristics that trust is a part of. But I want to add on to that this week and talk about the concept of personal reliability. Now, I know everybody knows what it means to be reliable and rely on others to help you when needed. But I want to take it a step further because personal reliability, to me, is something different as somebody that needs help with more things that are common for the majority of society to do completely on their own without thinking twice about it. Now, there are too many of those things to simply mention on this show, but just to name a few of the most impactful ones, it's having to rely on help for household chores, getting around in certain instances, specifically when the weather's bad, and even making decisions where you might need additional help. Let's take a look at making decisions for a second to start off. I'm capable of making all my own decisions with strength, courage, and a lot of thought going into them. But where it comes into it that I might need help is in making those decisions. I need to be able to figure out throughout that decision making process, is this a matter that I could potentially need help with? Now, in my situation, that can be something as simple as 95% of the time, I can walk into work, no problem at all, under my own power, not needing one bit of help from any person that's around me, whether I know them as a friend, colleague, or if they're a complete stranger. But then there's the other 5% of the time, give or take, that's a situation where I'm likely better off at least having people aware that I may need help. Those types of situations, if it's snowing, for instance, and there's a bunch of ice on the ground, with how independent I am, and those of you that have seen these previous podcast shows and know me personally, know that I take great pride in being independent. And asking for help isn't something that even now I do easily. But when you look at those situations, I have to look at it from a perspective of, can I walk into work or anywhere else for that matter on a snowy day that there's snow, wind, and ice, and trust that I'm not gonna slip and fall? On those kinds of days, I can't guarantee that. So, most of the time, it's better just to have somebody aware of what I'm gonna be doing, so that way, if I need help, I can ask, and hopefully somebody will be there to help. Now, I've also noticed that most of the time, people just simply step in and help. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful in the way we all should be with each other. We should always strive to help each other when we can. Now, I want to take you back to something that one of my former college professors told me at the end of one of my academic years. This is a statement that over 7 years later, I still think about daily. And he told me, Andrew, understand the difference between help because it's just there and help because it's something that you really need it for. In the moment, it struck me as profound. Now, all these years later, I see how vital that statement and piece of advice was, is, and always will be towards me having a great and independent future. So, having this personal trust, it's me being able to say, okay, I believe in myself that I can do this. I have the knowledge and the whereabouts and the courage to say, okay, just be smart about how you're doing things. Because I used to be the type, and maybe in some cases still am, where occasionally I'll slip and fall or things won't go according to plan, and I'll get flustered and won't exactly think clearly in the immediate aftermath. I'm sure everybody in the world can relate to that. But looking at it from my perspective, I have to constantly be aware of what will I do if something goes wrong? How will I respond? The trick is to not actually worry that something will go wrong. What needs to happen is I need to be prepared to immediately work on a solution to rectify the hardship that hit me. Worrying that something could go wrong is not going to do any good for me, anybody that's around me trying to help me, anybody that's simply with me if I'm out with a group of friends or colleagues. I need to be able to trust that I'm out doing something no matter what it is because I want to be and I'm proud to be doing it. And if something goes wrong, have the mindset to say, okay, how do I respond to it from the jump of getting myself back to a point where I'm not in a difficult situation? Take the example of slipping and falling on ice that I mentioned before. When that happens, believe me, as a guy with cerebral palsy that can't catch myself from falling, I've taken some painful smacks in my day on all different types of surfaces, thanks to ice and snow. And most of the time afterwards, my legs shake, my breathing is heavy, and my eyes are wide with not necessarily fear, sometimes fear, but more often than not in those situations, concern. And most of the time, I'm not in a place where I'm by myself, so people come up and immediately offer assistance, and that's great and something I am very thankful for. And those are times that, thanks to other people helping me up and everything like that, helping me get set to go on about my day, after the fall, as if I hadn't had that happen to me, I can start thinking, okay, what went wrong? Was there a specific reason I fell? Or was it just a freak incident that unfortunately happened and maybe was kind of embarrassing? So that comes back to this personal reliability. I need to look within myself and say, okay, what can I do to make a difference so this doesn't happen again? And if it does, how can I respond even better? That's a concept everybody can know, regardless of whether you have obvious challenges like I do or not. But with my challenges and others like me, this is just a concept that consumes more of our daily lives than the average person would probably expect. Because at the end of the day, I would hope everybody wants to be independent, determined, and courageous. And through having that mindset of how can I do better after a challenging moment, you're not backing up afraid of the challenges. You're taking them for what they are, an unfortunate accident a lot of the time. Sometimes things happen where you put yourself in a bad situation. I've been in those too with those types of falls, gotten in too much of a rush and have completely brought that situation on myself. But immediately after, I'm back to the mindset of how do I keep that from happening in the future? With that being such a regular concept in my life that I have to constantly be aware of, it can be nerve wracking because there's no telling when something can go wrong. Being that I walk with different adaptive aids, even sitting and using a wheelchair, things are different for me. So that means my response to those types of things is going to be different as well. So that personal reliability to say, I'm going to figure out for me how to go about handling situations and learning from them in their aftermath. That is something that is unique to me. And that's a concept that each and every one of us can find and work on for each and every one of our own personal lives. Everybody has similar hardships, but on the other side of the coin, while everybody has those similar hardships, everybody responds to similar hardships differently most of the time. So, responding to hard times, that, like many other things, even that I've mentioned on previous shows here, is not a one-size-fits-all response. People need to understand that independence and being able to depend on other people are both things that are absolutely essential to long-term growth and success. Because most of those times when I've fallen, whether it's been just a freak situation or me being unaware of it and putting myself in a bad situation, not thinking clearly and falling, sometimes I've been able to get up and manage myself going on about my day. Times it's been essential that other people help me because I have a hard time getting up, especially in the winter. So, in closing, just always strive to do your best to recognize that these hardships, when they come, because I promise you, they will. Everybody will be faced with times where you think, that came out of nowhere. Now how do I deal with it? Well, however you figure out to deal with it, be proud of that. Because as much as everybody has challenges and hardships, no matter how big or small, in the same breath, everybody has the same opportunity to overcome them and be better in the aftermath of them so they can learn from them and move on to even more greatness. It's all about self-reliability and having the willingness to do what you need to do for yourself, to say, this is the way it's gonna help me come to terms with what happened, learn from it, and if it's a situation that happens to friends of yours and groups of people, work together to come up with solutions so the challenge to the group doesn't happen again. And if it does, at least then you'll be better prepared to anticipate it and then ultimately react to it in the immediate aftermath, and then ultimately move on from it with a continued smile on your face and resolve to be the best that you possibly can be. Thanks everybody for taking the time to tune in to episode 4 of the Challenge the Champion show here on my YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in next week for episode 5, Acceptance. I'm Andrew Gallinger. Thank you everybody. Have a wonderful day.